Welcome to the More Than Dis podcast, where we dive into conversations with good friends to bring us out of our stress, away from our to-dos, and out of our head. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. It's great to have you. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review to help others find out about the show. With that out of the way, let's jump right in.
It's premiere week. It's finally here.
It is. It feels really good. It's different than I expected. I wanted all of us to have a sort of red carpet out in Sun Valley Film Festival last year, and now we're forced to an online festival. But I think we chose a pretty good one, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited for the cast and crew to see the films, for other people to see a film, and then for us to move into digital distribution in early summer. It's really exciting.
I know. When I was speaking to Jessie, I thought I had totally completely lied to her because I thought I had read something that we would be streaming around summerish time. But when she didn't know it, I was like, did I just make that up or what did I just do? But no, that's gonna be exciting. So I was hoping that you could take us into kind of the process or what it's been like for you from beginning to now, because I mean it's been your baby. Essentially, it's been like a passion project of yours, and you've worked extremely hard to make it happen. So so how did it start for you?
It started more than 10 years ago, and I can't believe it's finally come to fruition. But it started really because I had gotten interested in screenwriting. I used to be the director of entertainment marketing for Hewlett Packard, the computer company. And what that meant is people would send me scripts to be part of their movies or television shows. The products would be in the background.
Okay.
And I would read them on airplanes and stuff. I'd read a bunch of scripts. And then I got really interested in screenwriting, because it's a page a minute. It didn't seem that difficult at the time. Of course, I had never written a script. But
Right.
then a bunch of people around me started having some physical challenges. My nephew was born with spina bifida, and my best friend was paralyzed in sort of a freak accident. And and all of that sort of happened around the same time. So I had it in my mind to write a film about people with disabilities not being judged for their disability, but maybe some hidden powers that they didn't know they had. And so, and then I read more and more about neuroplasticity, about that being a true phenomenon. I thought it would make a good story. So I wrote a number of scripts and then just sat for a while, for more than 6 years, just sort of sat in a stack. And then I got connected to the people at Jump in downtown Boise, which is a creative empowerment center. And they encouraged me to bring it to life. So I did a table read, which led to a promotional trailer, which led to raising money, which led to the eventual casting workshops, which led to the filming of Making Sense. And now it's done and ready to go.
It's done. Oh my goodness. So many questions. So I mean, it's always different to kind of obviously having the disability versus someone like for you watching your best friend go through it or your family member. But how I'm kind of interested in that perspective because obviously myself I have CP. But I've always wondered what it's like for an abled person to kind of have a loved one with a disability, or just going like in the case of your best friend. How was it for you seeing him go through this life-changing event, and then how did you go about how did it change your perspective essentially?
It changed my entire life. As as I think people can imagine, when they see somebody in a wheelchair, I think they initially say, well, I'm glad that's not me, right? And then it becomes them overnight. And in the case of my friend Tom, he was very energetic, a big fisherman, did a lot of things with his children, did a lot of hiking and biking. And he went from that to really, in his mind, instantly having that whole world taken from him. So,
Right.
yeah, I still remember this vividly. He said, Doug, I used to kind of feel pity. I'd look at somebody in a wheelchair and think, gosh, that must be horrible. And then now I'm that person. Now I'm the person that people have to avert their eyes from. And I feel less than human, is what he said. And between his experience and my nephew Noah, who was a gradual descent into a wheelchair for him
Mm-hmm.
in terms of lost mobility, he went from being somewhat of a popular kid in school to being somewhat of an outcast because of his inability to actually do physical events and things with them.
Right. Right.
So, and again, he was sort of dehumanized. Same people, great personalities, great in every respect, except they lost some physical mobility. Yet they were made to feel less than. So that's what impacted me significantly, because I think we all have disabilities, whether we wear them on our sleeves or not, whether somebody like CP has CP like yourself and may have a somewhat of a noticeable limp, or folks who may suffer from anxiety or um, other ailments.
Right.
Some are visible, some may not be visible, but everybody has flaws, right?
Right.
And so I think what I wanted to get across is it's not it's maybe not flaws. Maybe these lead people to breakthroughs and give them understandings of how their world is and how others shortchange them, but how they're every bit as able to break through and to be and motivate themselves and others. And so that was really the crux of it for me and why I told that story. And it's changed me forever. This whole
Yeah.
experience has changed me forever.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Because I think the biggest struggle, and I'll speak for myself, obviously. I think the biggest struggle has been kind of going from the way of thinking of that it's a flaw or that there's something wrong with you, to kind of exactly like you said, kind of discovering the beauty behind it. As abstract as it might seem, it kind of gives you a different mode of, I don't know if this would be the right way to say it, but a different mode of living, or of a different perspective, a different angle in life, essentially. So I think that, but from the hard part is from getting from A to B, as I'm sure your nephew and your friend can attest to. I mean, that's it. That's just the battle right there. Um, but I was gonna ask, so in the movie. So you guys, one of the things that I really admired and really appreciated was that for the characters, you all were trying so hard to cast the characters, and I don't even know how to say this, but cast the actors with the appropriate disabilities as the characters, to give them that more a bit more realism in a way, right? So in going through the audition process and the workshop that I attended, what what did you see, like meeting all these people, or yeah, what, I guess, how was that process?
Yes, it was really important to me that we had authentic representation. I think that's the official Hollywood term now, authentic representation,
Uh-huh.
which really means that, what you'd see in film is what you'd see in society as a whole, right? People with disabilities make up around 20% of, the 350 million people in the United States.
Mhm.
But yet less than 2% of them are represented correctly in film or television. And so it was important for me for this film to have merit, is for us to have it authentically cast. So that meant the five senses and choosing people that lacked one of those five senses, um, which is taste, touch, smell,
Mhm.
hearing, um, and I I was having trouble with and Smells the last one. But I was having trouble finding, them, because we're looking for people that can also act, have personalities, be engaging, be
Yeah.
people that the audience would want to root for. And so we did some open auditions, and fortunately, you were one of the people that
Thank you.
uh, joined them, as well as Jesse and lots of other people put on by, Katrine McGregor, who's our casting director in the film and actually a great acting coach
Yeah.
and one of my mentors for this film. And um, and I remember that between her and April Matson, who was the other coach that day, there was a few people that really shined, and you were one of them. And there
Thank
were
you.
some other cast members as well, like Mike Barnett,
Yeah.
um, who showed up and really demonstrated that they were extremely personable and had all these qualities. And after that workshop, for the first time, I had the confidence in working with our director, Gregory Bain, that we could pull this off. So
Hmm.
it all started with just casting the net fairly widely and finding people that sort of matched our criteria for age, personality, and yes, physical ailment.
Yeah.
And then we just took it from there.
No, I appreciate the one of the other things is that, like, exactly like you said, um I appreciate that you guys just kind of didn't, even though you guys wanted that representation, that you guys just didn't um like throw in a person essentially just to kind of check off a box, because I don't think that serves anybody any favors. It doesn't serve like the actor or the person themselves just to kind of be a kind of, and I don't know if this is the right word, but objectified because of their disability, because it's kind of like saying, oh, like, you have the disability, good for you, and then just kind of throw them in there without kind of any regard, so that was another thing that I appreciated. And the complexity of the characters. I was speaking, I did an interview for the local news here, and that was one of the things that I mentioned, that I really liked, the fact that even though the characters had the disabilities and they played a role in the movie, it wasn't it wasn't their defining characteristic, I should say. So even for my character Max, or for Mackenzie's character Sam, it was just like, we were researchers, we were professionals, we had a regular day job essentially, and then our disabilities just kind of there. Um, Again, important, but not our main asset, I guess you could say. So yeah.
Yeah. And I struggle with that even today, on how to market this, right? Because uh, for the Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival, they had initial descriptions on their website about the film, and they said something like, a film that touts itself as inclusive of multiple forms of disability. And I said,
Mhm.
well, that's not the log line, right?
Mhm.
So can we just talk about this as the film plot,
Mhm.
and not about the disability angle, because that's a disservice to the people with disabilities that are in the film.
Yeah.
They their acting speaks for itself. Like, and we should be this film should be judged on its merits for a film. It's not a
Yeah.
film about disability. Disability is a catalyst, which brings the film to its conclusion and
Yeah.
its
Yeah.
climax, but it's not a film about people with disabilities. And so we sort of had this philosophical discussion. And
Yeah.
so, some of my social media does mention the disability angle, because I really want to reach those audiences. I want
Yeah.
people to watch it from those audiences. But the film has sci-fi overtones, but I think it works on its own merits, and it's engaging, and it's thought-provoking.
Mhm.
And Greg and I never wanted to patronize any facet of the aspect of disability in this film. We
Mhm.
wanted to engage, inspire, delight, humor, and so I'm glad you saw it that way, because the actors, you and your colleagues in this film, I think do a tremendous job, and I would hire you for you know other films where I
No,
needed an actor regardless of a disability.
it's such a fine line, exactly like you're saying, because yeah, I mean, it's important to reach, like you said, the correct audiences, but yeah, it's just such a fine line between being patronizing and reaching them. So again, I think you've been navigating it really well, and it's been great to see. So what's next for you as far as do you have any other movies or
Yeah, I mean, I think, I got the bug
yeah.
as writing this, and I had written another script um, called The Plan, and it is something I've got in development. And
Oh, nice.
similar to what it does with people with disabilities in terms of accurate portrayal, this one involves the homeless, and
Right.
particularly the homeless in Boise. And so my grand plan is to cast that with homeless in Boise. I've had some initial conversations with the Interfaith Sanctuary here
Mm.
in Boise, and they're on board. And we're starting to work with Jump and with Greg and having information discussions. Black History Museum's another entity that I'm working with to see if we can't piece this together and produce it
Right.
sometime in 2021. So that's maybe the next
Ooh,
plan. But
that's
really, I
exciting.
want Making Sense to be launched in April or May with a streaming on streaming platforms uh, and ensure that it's given its due so that people actually can
Yeah.
see it. The widest possible audience to watch something like this would be my dream scenario. And that's going to take a significant amount of work between now and say early April to make that a reality.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I kind of I can definitely resonate with you in what you're saying about getting the bug. I mean, for you writing, but I mean, I totally loved just kind of getting like kind of diving into the acting world and the acting industry. So yeah, it kind of just grabs you. I was talking, and I was talking earlier, and I was like, I loved showing up because I knew, and it was such a great environment that I just kind of loved showing up and kind of just seeing everybody. And then the filming of it just kind of turned into, oh yeah, like I'm gonna go and film or shoot a scene, but I'm also gonna go and get to see like people that I really like admire and really like. So it was just it was just a great experience, honestly.
I should ask you, what's your next move in the acting world?
Oh Lord. I don't know, honestly. I'm open to it. I'm still working with Katrine, thankfully. She's still pushing me. Like in a good way to kind of better my craft. But yeah, I as far as other opportunities, I have no idea what's in store, but I'm definitely open for whatever comes next. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your podcast is amazing. I caught your discussion with Jesse, and uh, I think this is a really important subject that you're tackling, regularly with discussions,
Mhm.
um, because I I don't feel like you are defined by your disability. I mean, you might be defined by your smile and personality. Sorry,
Oh, thank you. Oh, dang
which are
it.
good things to be, maybe thought of
Yeah.
for.
I
But
appreciate that. Thank you.
in just hearing your story, and I think a lot of your audience already knows this, but I mean, being born premature and then just given the situation at the hospital where they took you out of an incubator and gave it to probably a more wealthy family, that defined your future right there. That could be any of us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and um, then you're left at the crossroads of, okay, well, this is my situation. So I
Yeah.
could take pity on my situation, but it's not going to change it,
Yeah.
right? So what can I do to bring light to the world with the gifts that I have? And any of us are just an accident away, um, or maybe a revelation away from having a different um, experience in the world on how others judge us and perceive us. We
Right.
can't change that. We can't
Mhm.
change how other people perceive us. We can change how we perceive ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And how
Mhm.
we handle ourselves. And that's the most important thing, I think, for people to understand, is you are who you believe yourself to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think in life terms like that, a whole new world opens up, right? Because it doesn't really matter what other people think. It matters how you carry yourself and how you perceive the world. So I'm I'm excited, for people to hopefully watch the film and then look at somebody with a, disability and think, gosh, maybe I should get to know that person, because maybe that person has a
Right.
secret power that I'm not aware of. And of course, anybody with a disability has a secret power, and that secret power is the fact that they can overcome obstacles, whether they know it or not. They're
Mm-hmm.
already superhuman. But and with neuroplasticity, with one sense taken away, more senses open up, and that's a real phenomenon. It's been proven, and I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, no, everything you just said, I totally agree. I don't think I can add anything to it, so I'm not even gonna try. But so one of the other things that I wanted to speak with you about is the includeability, because the funds that this movie produces is gonna go to that foundation, right? Can you talk a little bit about more about that, and yeah, how that kind of came into play for you?
Yeah, IncludeAbility is the charity that I co-founded with 4 other people here in Boise, and it includes primarily children, but also adults in sporting arts events. And so, for the last few years, we've had kids participate in fun runs, 5Ks, even youth triathlons, and we pair them up with high school students to sort of push them if they're in a wheelchair, or hold their hands, maybe if they have an intellectual disability and maybe not, feel like they can do something on their own. They have a mentor, and so people usually finish the race together. A high
Mm-hmm.
school student and somebody they're paired with, which is fascinating, because the high school students will say, "I got so much out of this, probably more than the actual
Yeah.
participant," and and so it's been great, and we've done that for a few years. The film Making Sense proceeds will go entirely to this charity.
Mm-hmm.
So any streaming download, net proceeds will go there. Obviously, film festivals don't generate money for the film, but they do for the festival. But it's an important aspect of this,
Mm-hmm.
and we hope to put on additional films, additional sporting events, and things with the proceeds that we have. Um, and we were able to raise money through private donations, corporate contributions, foundations, so that it all came together to provide us the opportunity to produce this. Because one of our big things was, we want to pay everybody.
You're
We
right.
want to pay our actors, not a lot. It's not like you got rich off this. Uh,
Yeah.
but we we paid them a tiny bit of money, but also the crew,
Yeah.
regardless if what you did on set, we paid you for an independent scale. And
Right.
you know we wanted to do this in such a way that people would get experience, so they can further their careers, make a little bit of money, and do everything professional, like you'd have on a professional film script set, which it was in
Yeah.
every aspect, thanks to
Yeah.
Greg Bain, our director, editor, co-writer, and essentially extraordinary
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
filmmaking
say.
talent.
Yep.
Yeah, Doug Cole was a creator. I had the idea, and initial scripts, and then we refined it with Greg, and then Katrine cast and provided some consultation. But Greg really took this the extra mile,
Mm-hmm.
um, and made it a reality, and I think made an experience for you guys as actors that was pretty exciting. I'd like to think, anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean I can't give Greg enough props, I don't think. Like you said, he was just amazing, and he created an environment that you just felt comfortable in. I feel like, especially for speaking from like a first time, like acting for the first time, you're not like, I was naturally like, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess this up, stuff like that. But when you showed up on set, Greg was approachable, and he was patient. But then you also he had that perfect balance of yeah, just approachability and kind of knowing when it was time to get things done. So it was just a great experience all around. One of the things that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned with includeability was that I think you're right. It's so important to create that interaction with I guess abled people and people with disabilities, just because I think it goes both ways, right? As an abled person, you sometimes don't get to interact with someone with a disability, so it automatically creates that wall between the two that shouldn't be there. And the same goes for the person with a disability, right? Because you're like, or again, speaking for myself, you may think like, oh, are they gonna like judge me? What are they gonna think of me? I think includeability in doing those sporting events kind of creates a common ground where they can where both can feel comfortable in developing a friendship, which I think is the most important.
Yeah, and you obviously developed a friendship with Jessie through this whole thing, and
Yeah,
which will
yeah,
endure. And she's does a great job. I hope that she gets some notoriety,
yeah. Me too. I
and
think she.
maybe
Yeah,
from this more than she already has. But I think she's a rising talent. Richard Clouch, who is the other primary actor. These are able-bodied actors, but I think if you ask them, they enjoyed an experience of working alongside you guys as
mm-hmm.
actors. They probably saw you as actors first, and maybe people with mobility issues or whatever down the road. But it was acting and friendships that were developed that was the most important. Well, in sporting events, we know that people with disabilities just want to be included in mainstream events.
Yeah.
We just saw a young man with an intellectual disability and Down syndrome complete an Ironman triathlon in Florida. His name is Chris Nick.
Wow.
He really did finish it, 140.6 miles,
Yeah.
um, running, riding, and swimming. And he finished it in a time that was better than quite a few able-bodied participants, right? And he was
Yeah.
able to do that because he joined his local tri club and got to train with able-bodied people in Florida, and that gave him the motivation to and the skills to actually compete it. Well, so that's a very tangible example of how inclusion really benefits everybody. It really does, and not yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Again with sports, I feel like that was one of the tougher things for me to overcome when I was younger, just not being able to kind of participate in that sense. And I also agree with you in the sense of it's just a very fine line of like I guess uh being open for people with disabilities to participate in I guess like how you mentioned mainstream sporting events, obviously with the help of able people if they need it, just being
Right.
open and having the option for the person to decide what to do rather than being
That's
like
right.
put in a box like, oh no, you have to go here because of this or you have to go here because of that. So yeah, no, again, I think you oops, sorry, I just dropped something. I think you hit it on the nail again. So, but anything else, Doug? I think what are you gonna? So you have a premiere to get ready for. Are you gonna do anything special or what?
I'm actually watching it with just my immediate family. I have two children, and gonna watch it with them and my girlfriend, and we'll watch it. Hopefully, I'll stream it from my laptop to the big screen or
Yeah. Yep.
or television, and and then we have a virtual reception afterwards, just so I can see faces like yours
The
from the
cast. Yeah.
cast and crew. We've all survived COVID, thankfully, and
Thankfully.
and
Yeah.
uh, and hopefully we haven't too many of us haven't been impacted. I still have my COVID beard, so
Oh,
that's my
I mean, hey.
remnant. Yeah. Um, and then yes, just heads down, ready to focus on getting us to the video on demand after this weekend's done. Hopefully, getting some positive reviews.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people hopefully will go on to the website or the app and give us a positive review, which would give us momentum when we get video on demand in April. I can't name the partner yet, but we do know that we will be on some of the major streaming platforms like Amazon and iTunes. So really excited about that. Because I think it'll broaden our audience up significantly. I'm already getting interview requests for people like you and other cast members, which makes me happy because
Yeah.
you guys are the stars, and deserve to get some recognition for what you did.
Thank you. So I think this would be a great way to, I mean, obviously I still have the 3 questions that I ask my every guest. But before we do that, can you just basically lay down the steps on how to best support the movie? Especially so the premieres this Thursday at 5, Mountain Standard Time.
That's right.
And so, for example, let's say I go and click the link, right? I buy my ticket. And if I don't have time to watch it on Thursday, could I still watch it later, or how would that work? And yeah, just lay it
Yeah,
all
the
down.
best way for people to get access to the film is to go to makingsense-film.com.
Hmm.
Don't forget the dash.
Yeah.
And on the homepage, there's a link to the film. You can just click a button and go right to the Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival page, and it's like $10 to watch the film. And you don't. It starts at 5 o'clock Mountain Time tomorrow, Thursday, the 11th, and then it's on demand after that through the entire weekend, all the way up until Monday, I believe, at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So it can be watched
Perfect.
anytime between then and then. And then once you purchase the ticket, you'll be given a link on streaming instructions, and as part of that, you'll be given an opportunity to go to the Boston Sci-Fi Film Fest page and provide a review.
Okay,
That's
great.
usually done through a downloadable app, which is super easy to do. Or I think you can even be done by just connecting right with their website. So that's all that is really anybody needs to do. Makingsense-film.com, and take it from there.
What makes a true friendship?
Oh, a true friendship means to me anyway to deal with each other in a very authentic way, to be your authentic self, and to enable the other person to be authentic, warts and all. Just let it ride. Know that you respect that person for who they are.
Who is one person that has impacted your life in a positive way, and how?
Well, I'd have to say that my best friend Tom, who I already talked about, somebody who has gone through something pretty significant. In his case, he had a cyst at the base of his neck that he had since childbirth that burst when he was hiking with his 2 kids. He thought he was dying. He said goodbye, and they airlifted him to Phoenix, and he had surgery, and it was a long road back, and he realized that he was never going to walk again. And that was more than 10 years ago, and it has not stopped him hardly at all. In the person that he is, he adopted a child from China, a little girl who's now the love of his life. He is engaged in fishing. He customized a pontoon boat. He just lives life large. He even though I know he goes through pain, emotional and physical, he pushes through it, and I have the highest amount of respect for him and others that go through something like that.
What is one piece of advice you would give to the youngest member of your family?
Well, I give them unsolicited advice all the time, and it's usually, like what you'd expect from a parent, which is um, don't be afraid to try things. Jump in with both feet and engage and move on if it's not your cup of tea. But you know, sort of like a Jim Carrey movie, just say yes. Say yes to as many experiences, as many friendships. Um, they always make fun of me, my kids, because when they were smaller, they're in college now. When they were smaller, I'd say when they were heading out the door with their bag lunch, I'd say, make a new friend today. Sit with somebody that um, is alone in the cafeteria, and they'd be like, "I know, Dad. Make a new friend today."
Yeah.
Um, but it's to open themselves up to new experiences, and whatever that is, each and every day, because you never know where it's gonna lead.
Mhm. No, that's really great advice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug, for wanting to be on here or willing to participate on the podcast. Again, I can't thank you enough. You were the first person that I met going to the workshop coincidentally. So yeah, it was just I can't I mean you effectively with your dream kind of has changed my life. So yeah, just thank you, and enjoy the movie yourself, because you put so much into this.
You've been listening to the More Than Disc podcast. Before you go, don't forget to give us a quick rating and review, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit downwithdisc.com to stay up to date with the latest information about the show. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we'll catch you on the next one.